Have you ever wished that all your problems could disappear overnight? Have you ever imagined what you would do if someone suddenly offered you unlimited wealth? Be careful what you wish for, because sometimes the gifts that shine the brightest hide the darkest curses. This is the story of Kwame, a poor farmer whose desire for a better life led him down a path he never should have taken. And by the time he discovered the truth, he almost lost everything that truly mattered. Long ago, in the fertile hills of the Ashanti lands, there was a small village called Abrafo. The people of Abrafo lived simple lives. They farmed the land, raised animals, and depended on the seasons for survival. Among them lived a humble farmer named Kwame. Kwame was not wealthy. In fact, he was one of the poorest men in the village. He owned no farmland of his own. Every morning before the first rooster crowed, he would wake up, pick up his old hoe, and walk several miles to work on other people's farms. The work was exhausting. The pay was small. But Kwame never complained. He believed that honest work was a blessing. At home, his wife Adwoa sold vegetables in the marketplace. Together they worked tirelessly to provide for their children. They had 3 children, 2 strong sons and 1 beautiful daughter named Amma. Amma was the joy of the family. She was kind, respectful, and always smiling. Whenever Kwame returned home exhausted after a long day in the fields, Amma would run toward him and throw her arms around his waist. Instantly, all his worries would disappear. Though the family struggled financially, their home was filled with love. Every evening they gathered around a small cooking fire. They shared stories. They laughed together. And before sleeping, they thanked God for protecting them another day. But outside their home, life was not always kind. Many wealthy men in the village looked down on Kwame. They mocked his poverty. They laughed at his worn clothes. They treated him as if he were invisible. One year, during a grand harvest festival, the entire village gathered to celebrate. Music filled the air. People danced. Children ran through the streets. Large tables overflowed with food. Kwame attended the celebration, hoping to enjoy the occasion like everyone else. At first, some wealthy villagers welcomed him. They invited him to sit at their table. For a brief moment, he felt accepted. But after the meal ended, one of the rich men pointed toward a mountain of dirty dishes. Then he smiled cruelly. "Kwame, since you are the poorest among us, you should clean all of these." The others burst into laughter. Kwame froze. He thought they were joking, but they were not. The crowd watched. Some laughed, others remained silent. Humiliated, Kwame slowly gathered the plates. As he washed them one by one, he felt his dignity slipping away. That night, he walked home in silence. When Adwoa saw him, she immediately knew something was wrong. "My husband, what happened?" Kwame sat down and stared into the fire. After a long pause, he replied quietly, "In this world, many people judge a man's worth by the size of his wealth." Adwoa took his hand. "You are worth far more than gold." But for the first time in many years, Kwame struggled to believe her. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Kwame continued working hard, yet something had changed inside him. A dangerous seed had been planted. He no longer wanted only enough food for his family. He wanted wealth. He wanted respect. He wanted people to admire him. Most of all, he wanted those who mocked him to regret their words. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. As Kwame rested beneath a tree after a long day of labor, an old traveler appeared. The stranger wore a long black robe. His walking staff was carved with strange symbols. His eyes seemed ancient, as if they had witnessed centuries pass. The old man stopped before Kwame. "I know who you are," he said calmly. Kwame looked surprised. "Have we met before?" The stranger smiled. "No, but I know your struggles. I know how hard you work. I know how poverty follows you wherever you go." Kwame felt uneasy. "Who are you?" "Someone who can change your life forever." The old man sat beside him. Then he spoke of riches beyond imagination. Gold, land, power, respect. Everything Kwame had ever desired, and all without years of backbreaking labor. Kwame listened carefully. His heart pounded faster with every word. Finally, he asked, "What must I do?" The stranger reached inside his robe and removed a small clay pot. It looked ordinary. Yet somehow Kwame could feel strange energy radiating from it. The old man handed it to him. "Every morning, open this pot. You will find 1 gold coin inside. But there is one condition. You must never reveal where your wealth comes from." Kwame stared at the pot. "That's all!" The old man nodded. "That is all." Blinded by hope, Kwame accepted. The following morning, he opened the pot. Inside was a shining gold coin. His hands trembled. The next day, another coin appeared, then another, and another. Within months, his life transformed completely. He purchased farmland, he bought cattle, he hired workers, he built the largest house in Abrafo. The villagers could hardly believe their eyes. The same people who once mocked him now greeted him with smiles. The same men who had humiliated him at the festival now invited him to their homes. Suddenly, everyone wanted to be his friend. Kwame enjoyed every moment. For the first time in his life, he felt respected, but wealth brought unexpected changes. The humble man he once was slowly began disappearing. He became more distant, more secretive, more worried, and then the whispers began. At first they were faint, barely noticeable. Each time he removed a coin from the clay pot, he thought he heard something. A voice, a whisper, a distant murmur. He ignored it. Days passed. The whispers grew louder. Soon he heard them during the day, then at night, then even in his dreams. One evening, as he reached into the pot, the whisper became clear. "The debt must be paid." Kwame nearly dropped the coin. His heart raced. "What debt?" he whispered. But there was no answer. That night he could not sleep. The following morning, he stepped outside his mansion. Standing near the gate was the old traveler, waiting, watching, smiling. Kwame felt fear crawl through his body. The old man approached slowly. "You have enjoyed the gold," Kwame swallowed nervously. "What do you want?" The old man's smile widened. "The time has come." "For what?" "To settle your debt." Kwame shook his head. "I owe nothing." The old man pointed toward the clay pot. "Every gift has a price." Fear filled Kwame's eyes. "What price?" The old man's voice became cold. "Your family." Kwame felt the world stop. "No, you must choose." "No, keep your wealth and lose your family, or destroy the pot and lose everything you have gained." Kwame stumbled backward. His legs nearly collapsed beneath him. The old traveler turned and walked away. Before disappearing, he said one final sentence. "You have 3 days." For the next 3 days, Kwame lived in agony. He could not eat. He could not sleep. Every time he looked at Amma, his heart broke. She trusted him completely. She loved him without conditions. And now his greed had placed her in danger. On the third night, he sat alone in the darkness. Around him stood his mansion, his wealth, his success, everything he had dreamed of. But inside the house slept his wife and children, the people who had stood beside him when he had nothing. Suddenly, the answer became obvious. No amount of gold could replace them. At dawn, Kwame carried the clay pot into the center of the village. People gathered around him. They wondered what the richest man in Abrafo was doing. Without speaking, Kwame raised the pot above his head, then smashed it against a stone. A terrifying scream echoed across the village. Dark smoke exploded into the sky. The ground trembled. People ran in fear. The clouds darkened. Then suddenly, silence. Moments later, strange things began happening. The gold inside Kwame's house turned to dust. His cattle disappeared. His expensive furniture vanished. The walls of his mansion cracked. Within hours, everything was gone. By sunset, Kwame was poor once again. The villagers stared in disbelief. Some laughed. Others shook their heads. Many believed he had gone mad. But Kwame felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Peace. When he returned home, Amma ran into his arms. "Daddy!" Tears filled his eyes. He held her tightly, stronger than ever before. At that moment, he realized the greatest truth of his life. He had not lost everything. He had saved everything that truly mattered. Years passed. Kwame never became wealthy again. But he never regretted his choice. He continued farming. His children grew up. Amma became a respected woman in the village. And every time young people complained about poverty, Kwame would tell them the story of the clay pot. Then he would say, "Never trade your family for riches. Never trade your peace for wealth. And never trust gifts that promise everything while asking nothing in return. Because anything gained without honest effort, often carries a hidden guide tight." And that lesson became one the people of Abrafo would remember for generations. The Shani Shend.